It's in the spirit of collaboration, a group presenting next from Diploma 20, the box next door. Hosea Lau, Zina Jamil, and Halima Kamas Ali would like to present their project in a collective way. Welcome all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Halima could not make it today. She had something she could not make. So I'm Zina.
I'm Jose, and we're from DIP 20, the civic entrepreneur. And in our unit, we see architecture as a contributor to the creation of settings where we collectively thrive.
From bringing communities together to offering care and rebuilding livelihoods.
So communities are slowly falling apart. The problem? Community centers at their current form are tired, underwhelming places. People treat them as spaces for somebody else, and they provide the expected.
We started our journey in Custom House, a neighborhood in Newham ranked as one of the most deprived areas in London, most in need for an impactful community center to uplift and support its community.
Not so obvious on the outside, there is a strong community present. Only focusing on unemployment, violence, or poor housing takes away the complex yet intriguing beauty within. Their capabilities lie within what the people are already doing there.
We're not thinking of a community center as a building, but rather it's a complex set of people, spaces, and events, and taking this beyond the physical and quantifiable, starting with the people and not spaces. Change makers were the core of this journey, giving us key insights of hope, action, and unexpectedness. We tried to redefine the community center in order to, with the people and rather for the people.
We each had insightful discussions with change makers around the world that were involved with their communities in different ways and sought to understand what were the enabling conditions.
We tried to analyze their cultivating journey and identify the different triggers, unexpected actions, and reactions they went through to pin down their defining qualities of change-making. One prominent insight was that these all change makers had a dream, but it wasn't until they let somebody in it and let them be in the dream that they made it impactful with real value to the community.
We found from this that the change brought by hope is natural and unplanned, and impact is made by including others, and those interactions inspire action.
After our many conversations with members of the Custom House community, we identified Scarlett as our unexpected dreamer in a way to redefine the community center leader role. Through her hope to improve her community, she took actions to inspire others, making masks, producing food boxes in times of despair.
We started collaborating virtually with Scarlett a few months ago on a weekly basis and have found her relationship to be very insightful on both ends. After getting to know Scarlett, we identified two core problems and needs in her community: a need to showcase local makers and a need for affordable access to healthy foods.
Scarlett had already had packing fruits and veg boxes for a few months, so she had a proof of concept. We aim to take this idea further by adopting Scarlett's community as our dreamer model.
Scarlett, as a dream maker, was using 5 core ideas to drive her business further: provision, local businesses, disused high streets, easy access, and safe social contact. The core idea was simple. We wanted to know how to turn it into a community-owned, successful business that would inspire others to do the same.
We set out a 30-day plan covering 6 aspects of the business: marketing, branding, physical fundraising, online space creating, and financial model building for the next 5 years. This was to push the business further and give us more insights on what's needed to make a dreamer fly. On week 1, we treated Scarlett as our client, and we had weekly collaborative branding workshops for 4 weeks. The goal was to help her find her brand identity, voice, values, personality, and message to enhance the project's impact.
We grounded the proposition to be translocated. We found that the core of creating a brand was listening to the story told by Scarlett and the customers. The week after, we learned the importance of every detail to allow the owner to showcase the true values behind it. And finally, for us to tell the story right, we had to keep her in the core of our thinking, where she was able to highlight her qualities whilst maintaining local identity and values.
To enhance the customer journey, we analyzed the different user cases and current customer types Scarlett's dealing with on a weekly basis through every step. Upon analyzing how the business currently works, we designed a new customer experience to improve the flow and contact between all of those involved. This is one of the scenarios of many cases of the users. By designing the Instagram experience, we learned the fundamentals needed to attract people and keep them engaged and informed. And by designing the ordering experience as well into a more advanced system than the current one, we tried to make it more accessible and reachable. All of these insights tied back into a community building research.
A financial model was developed to better understand the feasibility and potential of the business, identifying profit and growth potential, and understanding contributing costs. From the dashboard, we can see the key drivers of the scheme in low, base, high volume scenarios, box sale margin and price, as well as hours worked, buying capacity of the community, and shop space restrictions with overall business growth. Revenue broke down each of the box's components, ancillary products, and maker workshop and shop space revenue share figures. The costs, split into initial CAPEX capital costs and operating OPEX costs, reflected the same components in the revenue section, included VAT, staff rates, and card payment charges. The model allowed us to find out that not only we could supply Scarlett's business with a delivery vehicle and shop fit out in the future, it showed that it is not sustainable for the business to grow in size in the same location, but rather it needs to be replicated and expanded in different locations.
In order to define the next locations in Newham, we pinned down aspects of conditions needed to launch a new branch. The first was defined by a master plan analysis made in order to define similar conditions to Custom House in terms of high deprivation levels, low income score, and low services of food availability. These areas in bright yellow are the most similar to Custom House, and the intersection of data layered led us to Beckton, our new first location, to the first branch. Based on a 15-minute walk radius from the branch, we can identify further new locations as well in the borough. And another way of growth, parallel to the branching, we propose a moving van similar to an ice cream truck system, an X factor to make people smile, but at the same time enhancing the accessibility and connectivity of the community. The second condition is based on defining the soft conditions needed to replicate this model that's very successful right now. These enabling conditions will be derived from the analysis made from the production process, the customer experience, and the qualities found in the people behind the scene working with Scarlett and helping her.
Next, we define the minimum infrastructure needed to replicate this successful model to new locations as a step towards redefining community centers. Contacted by Nikita, a local social worker, having gained her trust in the past few months, has asked us to work with new local leaders on developing their businesses in the coming weeks. We're excited to be using insights learned from our first pilot whilst adapting to new ideas. From the bigger picture, we should aim for the new type of community centers to be catered to all levels of the local network, preserving local identity while sharing ideas with others to inspire, building relationships, and supporting one another. Our key learnings include the incorporation of a strong community base in a dream maker's enabling conditions and finding the capabilities within. Inspired by Scarlett, taking the first step leads others to follow, and believing in one's own capacity to enact change is part of making change in itself.
With our pilots that are unexpectedly found with hope, we begin to collaborate on a model that will reignite communities to take action so that it becomes spaces for me and you, and enable others to take actions in unexpected ways.
Follow the box next door on Instagram to stay informed about a fundraising event happening soon and to put the business on the road in a broccoli van. Thank you.
Thank you both. Lots of collaboration at different levels there. And I think well worth having as part of today's session. I wonder, thinking about, I know this is going to sound bizarre, our criteria and where we end up at the end of an academic year with external examiners, and noting that some of the criteria ask about collaboration and being able to work with others, being able to analyze and link to the community. Do you think that this is part of your skill set now, or had you ever embarked on this level of dialogue with potential users or people on site as you have? And I'm curious how you managed it with COVID. Normally you'd go on site and run into people. How did you manage this sort of network, or was there some capacity to be on site in a safe manner?
Well, this was definitely our first time collaborating to this kind of collaboration. It was all on Zoom. We talked to so many people on site. It was it was some, like, our tutor helped us to get to know more people and gave us contacts, and we just yeah, it was a learning experience that we were able to learn how to talk to them as well, because of not coming from an academic point of view as well, and just talk about the community and the work they're doing.
It's so interesting to see this project in the context of the last project that we saw. I think, well, I won't talk about possible connections because I don't know if there are any, but I just wanted to acknowledge the last project, which I thought was brilliant as well. I think your group of three, you've done a really fantastic job of finding another way for architecture to, let's say, empower and enable citizens. And what I find particularly relevant and fascinating about the work is that you have essentially harnessed the knowledge set, the skill base of an architect, and have allowed that to not only contribute to build form, but to also contribute to all of the kind of backstory of what it takes to actually create a business, to make one visible in the world as an agent of change, right? I love the way you identified these 12 or so individuals and really try to sketch out the narrative of these individuals and then describe how an architect might be able to collaborate with them on many levels, right? On the level of financing, or on the level of making an idea visible. So the skills of visualization, the skills of structure, the skills of communication that we take for granted as architects, you've been able to bridge a gap to the larger public. And I think it's a kind of wonderful teaching moment, right? I mean, we were speaking about teaching in the last project, and I think this is another way of teaching the public. You know, it's sort of empowering people to realize visions and how to extend their ideas into the world. So I really commend you on that. And I think the diagrams and the drawings and the animations are really convincing in terms of the content of your project. So I want to congratulate you on that as well.
Thank you. I think we were also trying to sort of not exactly be an architect in this scenario, so not necessarily sort of going into the community firsthand, being like, this is what we're going to do with you, but rather it was sort of like a two-way process, and also sort of learning from the community. We've learned so much from them, and I think that was the most important thing that led us in this journey forward as well.
I'd also like to jump in and congratulate you on a rigorous participatory methodology. And I think it's fascinating. And I would be very curious to see how that continues as you work through the next stages of a design, I would imagine. So how you then test architectural responses against the user group again. So it doesn't become a wonderfully complex algorithm that allows you to arrive at a type of perfect architectural response, but actually continues to be malleable and informed by this user group. That said, I would question the title of the project, because I think it's kind of predetermined that it's a box. Or am I missing something there? So I think it could be anything that leads from the debate, in the discourse. Just because it's using that user group does not mean it needs to be a box. Not that there's anything wrong with boxes. It's just that it kind of gives you a kind of clue as to where you think it's going, whereas actually it might not arrive there. So yeah, I think continuing that methodology is going to be really challenging, actually, because you're going to have all kinds of things that are hugely difficult and qualitative and not quantifiable at some level, that you're going to have to make hard decisions about. And I think that's where it gets really interesting and difficult. What roof tiles do you use? Are you using roof tiles, etc., etc.? So I think, I think continuing that methodology would be fantastically rich.
Jose, you said something about stepping back from being the architect in this, but I would challenge that. clearly there's branding going on, there's a commercial enterprise, there's networking, there's sort of communications, and yet it all seems to be under the banner of an architect engaged in the things Anthony was pointing to, empowerment and communication, et cetera. But to feel uncomfortable, and it's a rhetorical question, really. I understand your point, but I also think we have to kind of look at that definition you presuppose when you say, I want to step back or not present myself as the architect in these contexts. There's something interesting about that tension, and maybe that's the whole point. I think that lurks in the brief as well. And I think it's certainly something you want to draw out as you bring the project forward towards its completion.
I think it's not being an architect, but rather like not being an architect first. So having this sort of entrepreneurial, civic sort of mindset to it before we apply sort of architectural ideas or theories on top of things. So yeah, we are using sort of an array of sort of architect skill sets, but in like a more interesting way, so that we can sort of have a different outcome. Is what we're trying to work towards.
I'm merely making a space that we can maybe begin to stretch or claim those other components as the larger skill set of a future architect. It might be required, and certainly it seems to be bringing your project some richness and some good questions as we go forward.
I would definitely underline that, and I think this is such a beautiful project. I felt I had something in my eye by the end of your presentation, because it has tremendous integrity and it has fantastic generosity of spirit. And to my mind, those are two qualities which absolutely should be front and center in architectural practice. And the idea that you think that, I think it's more like, perhaps what a notion of architecture has become, and you're expanding the notion of what architecture is, and that is something to be embraced. This shouldn't look, even to other people, like it's not architecture. How great it would be if people saw this and like, yeah, that is architecture. I think it's a fantastic project. And I mean, a couple of questions I have are, it's been very dependent, understandably, on your expertise, the expertise that we've underlined, the visualization skills, the representation, the structural thinking, structure not necessarily in built form. And I suppose, is there a way that can be made available in a broader sense? I mean, it's so dependent on that local expertise, the listening that you did, the talking, the conversations, the collaboration that you had, and yet it's also such a great gift. Is there a way that can be scaled, not just in terms of other mobile centres in East London, but also can you be scaled, and also what else could you do? I guess in line of, it's not just a box, but what else could you be distributing? Could you, for instance, be distributing skills? There are people who need, light bulbs changed. There are people who need help with their IT. Is there a way that kind of economy could be incorporated into it as well? But I think it's a really beautiful project, and I have to confess, I'm already following you now on Instagram. So I look forward to seeing how it develops.
Can I just ask for a point of clarification? With Custom House, do you imagine it, is that a home base to this with the mobile unit?
Definitely, because that's where all the projects started. And the whole idea is us trying to recreate what Scarlett did in Custom House into other areas that need the same thing. But at the same time, while branching to other areas, this would be another system of connecting Custom House to other areas in the borough. So working on a two-way system, just so that people know that they can connect together and get what they need, and doesn't have to be it could be community-based. Everything could be community-based.
I would maybe suggest, because I absolutely love the sincerity and the collective aspect of all of the information you've gained and the community you're addressing. I almost wonder if the architecture that you make also goes back to the box. It becomes a kit of parts that could then get nested into this particular unit or place. and then you find another neighborhood or location, this kit of parts arrives to that place as well, so that you begin to start talking about the sort of branding and scale of the space you start making and leaving behind. I really appreciate the integrity. I think I've learned so much from this. This is beautiful.
Good place to be, halfway in. Can I ask a behind the scenes question, like when the movie comes out? Is working collaboratively, I don't mean with the community, but I mean as a design team within the unit, perfectly smooth? Or have there been stages of negotiation that because it seems to us, looking particularly at the way you present in these images, is it's pretty smooth, but is that an illusion? And if so, can you kind of give us a sense of how you've managed it?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Go, Jose. Go for it.
I wouldn't say it's an illusion, because I think at the beginning we were already very keen to work together, because we had this sort of quick speed dating session within our unit, and we sort of spoke with every person, and then we kind of formed our own little group in the end, because we all had some mutual interests and sort of wanted to all look into this aspect of change making. So I think to me it's gone very smoothly.
And even we meet on like daily or like every other day, and that has helped a lot. Even in the process of us working alone and not being together in uni, it kind of made us feel like we had a unit space as well, of just meeting every day.
Oh, perfect answer. I think the speed dating, whatever they did, because normally group projects, you get a couple of eye rolls, right? This is not the case, and it seems to have worked so well. I'm just checking the chat to be sure I'm not missing. And we'll pick up other questions from the audience in the summary. Thank you all for presenting. And it's a pleasure to introduce the last project of the session, and indeed the afternoon, from postgrad, the AAIS program. Zoya Yuzhong, Kan Axon, and Tong Gao presenting their work, AAIS for Our Critics, is a program dedicated to performance. And I think they're going to show us something to bring the house down. So on to you, AAIS team. Oh, and Shireen, you weren't in my list, but there you are. Hi, Shireen.
Hello everybody and happy Chinese New Year. My name is Zoya, and I will be speaking on behalf of the Phase 1 students from the AAIS program. Our program itself is centered around promoting collaborative work amongst multidisciplinary designers. So we have a lot to say about the nature of collaboration and overlapping initiatives. This year, Phase 1 consisted of 18 students who, till date, have worked entirely online. We were challenged to organize ourselves creatively and view this network as real opportunities for innovation rather than temporary alliances to enable production. In this presentation, we will explore how this mode of exploration is not just possible, but essential.
The video you just saw was the 6 event video clips that have been done in AIAS Phase 1. In the first collaboration, we entered different groups based on the tutor's advice and our own interest. In the second collaboration, we realized that we needed to interact with the audience more, so we create different interaction paths and join different groups. In the third collaboration, we had a live show for the first time and used the live performance to link different paths to become a complete event. In the first time, we tried to use different ways such as physical performance, sound, and visual effects to show our understanding of the city.
In the fifth, we try to create a group that working on platform development, and using this group as the organizer and communicator of all content. In the next time, we explore for different perspectives under one theme, and focus more on the contact links between different groups. In last project, we needed to work with choreographers outside of our studio, and decided to use the website as a platform to show all the work. Based on our experience with the previous collaboration, also we have been trying to link the contact of each group. We realized that more communication between different groups was needed. So we chose a classmate in each group to take responsibility for communicating with different groups. Next, let's give you a quick look at the context of recent works.
We were able to explore the overall theme and work quickly within subgroups to promote each other. In collaboration with choreographers, we have developed breakthroughs in ideas, technique, and platforms. However, we still need to develop a clear division of rules and structures to increase connections between groups and ensure the overall integrity of events.
We always look for initiatives. Networking is the basis of the design process. When the networking diagrams and the program is designed, it is easier to cope with the rest of the voyage. The model allows us to give to the larger whole more freely, and the results become the sum of everyone's creative impact.
This is the new cooperation model for our future events. 3 subgroups are responsible for producing videos. Mediators will inform subgroups and tutors important information. Publicists are responsible for publication of events. Managers are responsible for monitoring schedules and checking for republishing errors. About future, more suggestions will come in.
Be brave to stop it if the idea is not working.
The work process consistently produces
Time
results and
management.
goals.
We have to really work on this. Start
Look
early.
back to the beginning.
Meet deadlines and support your coworker. Help them to do the same.
Oh, thank you so much, and we welcome your questions.
Thank you. Thank you all. Nicely presented. Anyone want to kick off? I know it's a bit of now for something completely different, but it certainly picks up themes we were just addressing in the last project.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more initially just about how you selected the themes that you were exploring in the first instance. Was that a collaborative process in itself, and how did that affect the rest of the project?
I guess I could start. So the themes that we went ahead and and worked on were decided in the 18 group, in a group of all 18 of us. And then usually those were almost umbrella concepts. And to further investigate them, we divided ourselves into subgroups. And then the subgroups kind of became a little more specific and went in a almost different direction. And then we used to have, in our next meeting, we kind of brought it all together and saw how they could sit together.
And did the themes emerge? I mean, was there a general mood about those themes, or was there a divergence of opinion?
There was a bit of, they were both. There were some themes that we could kind of, I guess the overarching umbrella concepts were, they were more concepts, they were ideas. It was like origin, isolation. And then the subgroups kind of picked on an aspect of it.
And at first, we will use a lot of time to discuss about the idea, because we have 18 people, so there maybe have a lot of different voice from different people. So we will put the ideas in the it's called memo board. A mirror board is in the website. You can show all the things in a whiteboard, so we can show all the things in this board and have a vote to choose which most of people favorite. Yeah.
I was just curious about how the model, which is unique in an educational context, how there's maybe comparisons that can be made to working in a professional collaborative environment, depending on what industry you're in. Let's say in a similar industry in media, filmmaking, advertising, and where the difficulties are, where the difficult parameters are. So let's say in industry, it might be a client where you're rubbing up against their own desires, needs, etc., etc. And I'm wondering what the kind of equivalency might be in an educational setting. Does it ever cause you difficulties, given that you're in a school of architecture, where you're trying to do something that's kind of radically different from maybe what the curricula is allowing, or is that is this a product of that curricula?
I think the difficulty is that each time, each workshop, we try to explore a slightly different concept and use different platform or media. So the tricky part is how to balance what we want to get from that object workshop and with the time. Sometimes time is not enough, and we cannot make our final design to the perfect state, and sometimes we have to sacrifice something to make the whole group work look very nice. And and also because we have 18 artists in our AIAS, so and ideas all the time, and the negotiating part is sometimes a little bit difficult. Yeah.
Does it get increasingly? I'm just curious also about the numbers. It says 18, and they get broken down into various specialisms as and when the project needs it to, and those numbers seem to shift. So sometimes you're in 5, sometimes you're in 3s, and so on. And I'm kind of curious to know if there's thinking of Dunbar's number, that there's some kind of inherent logic in collaboration. Threes work better than fives. I don't know. Did you find that because there's so many voices in the project, I would imagine if you're all 18 perhaps were doing the same thing, it would be incredibly difficult to kind of manage. But I don't know, has that affected the kind of methodology of your working in any way? The shifting numbers, the shifting patterns?
Yeah, I agree that the number is quite important. Like we found like each subgroup, the best number is 4. So like if we have less than 4, the work cannot be done very well because we don't have enough people. But if we have more than 4 people in one team, and like there always will be someone who will have less work to do and not very motivated. Yeah, so I think the best number is 4 from our experience. Yeah, we tried many workshops this term and last term.
Yeah, and also because we worked based on online or Zoom, so the most way we show the project is video. And if we do video, I think 4 is the best number. Yeah, but if we in the future we didn't work online, so maybe the number will change. And all the methods are also based on worked online.
Maybe I can bring Can into the conversation. I mean, one thing I noticed in the video montage of everyone's performances is, naturally enough, each of those performances is a single person. Now, if we were in-house, we'd have all been asked to leave the lecture hall and go up to the barrel vault, and there'd be one of you at the door, 3 of you moving, 2 of you on camera, 1 of you on lights, 1 of you with a fog machine. I mean, the collaborative work of the performance itself would be another layer of collaboration. And given that we saw a project that introduced this idea of the proxy object, or an object that could fulfill the role of something that we don't have direct access to, is there anything about your work through the medium, the platform you're working, through those dancing circles and diagrams, is there a next level modeling that would allow for collaborative movement? Or are you willing to sort of give that up as a condition of working under lockdown?
Thank you for the question. It's not a simple question to answer in this moment, but maybe in relation to the education model and further development of the haptic qualities and the dance, maybe we can investigate on it. Yeah, maybe the one person model can develop into more collaborative ways in an alternative environment, in the virtual environment. So we used website as a platform to exhibit our work as a stage, and maybe this stage can turn into another area of investigation, another technology. So maybe that can allow us to create that school environment where everybody's together, and yeah.
Can I ask what happens next for you guys as you work together as a team? Does this evolve or does it change into something different?
We're gonna try work on our previous concepts, as well as we're gonna try to develop new concepts. The last one was origin, and we developed in the choreography. So we're going to try to investigate on the previous ones, and we're going to try to develop our collaboration methodologies, models as well. And to answer the previous educational question, it works more like a menu. So it's more like everybody is helping develop the one section of the part, so the whole model or whole menu. So it allows us to create an result, an unexpected result.
Yeah, and just to add on to my colleague, even though we are divided into subgroups, the groups are incredibly fluid. We still we're still engaging with all the groups, and if one group needs an expertise, you have someone from the other group jumping in right away. So there is that organic quality still.
I was wondering if I could ask too about the way in which the audience can participate or can interact. I mean, everybody's getting used to doing things online during this period, and but I wonder if some of the ways in which you've had to work remotely and how you've been able to make connections even though you're physically distanced have suggested, I'm wondering if those methods have suggested to you ways in which you could try and engage your audience in new ways as well.